My mom has been lying about me to my friends for years, saying I'm unstable just to keep control of the family narrative. I wasn't going to let this slide. I needed to expose her. Growing up, I always felt like the odd one out. My brother was the favorite, and my parents loved to parade him around like some kind of trophy. Everything he did was amazing in their eyes, and I was just, like, the disappointing background character. Even small things I'd achieve seemed insignificant compared to his accomplishments. One time, I got a small art scholarship. I decently cried about it for days, but my mom just brushed it off when my brother got into a larger program. Her words still sting. "You're just lucky it's not a real career." But that construct of mine faded fast at the sight of her support for him. So, I decided to get out of there after high school, tried to form my own life, found my friends, and started to flourish a little more. But it didn't come without its own weight. My mom would bring up my mood swings, use all those terms that always made me question if I was really okay, like, how could I be on the verge of a breakdown when I'm just tired? It got to the point that she even told my best friend, who's super sweet but very impressionable, that I might be exaggerating my feelings for attention. Just thinking back, how do you constantly doubt your mental well-being? Even thinking about it now makes my blood boil. Flash forward to the present. I was home for the holidays. Everyone was busy, except for my mom, who was making it clear that my brother was the center of her universe. I genuinely overheard her on the phone with my childhood friend, laughing, and it came up again. My supposed emotional problems. "She's just looking for someone to feel sorry for her," my mom said. And I swear, I felt my stomach drop. Like, there I was, sitting in the next room, feeling like a complete fool. And suddenly, all those pangs of insecurity I thought I had moved past rushed back in with a vengeance. That was it. I could no longer ignore her misleading lies. I had been silent too long, and now I was ready to set things straight. After overhearing that call, I knew I had to do something. But how do you even start untangling a web of lies like that? So I decided to take things into my own hands. First, I went through my social media. My mom had always been pretty vocal about my brother and his achievements. And there it was, the perfect confirmation. She had actually shared a post from one of our old friends talking about how I needed to handle my emotions better. Seriously? That was news to me. I never even knew this conversation happened. I mean, who calls someone out like that in public? But as I looked at the comments, the support flooded in, backing her up, and I felt sick. How many times had she done this? My heart raced as I thought, did this go deeper than I realized? I was really beginning to doubt everything. I figured if I wanted answers, I needed to involve someone else, so I turned to my dad. I thought surely he'd see the light when I laid it all out. Honestly, I thought I'd catch him off guard with all my findings, but it turned out I couldn't be more wrong. Instead, he insisted that I was being overdramatic, like I always was in his eyes, and then he tried to convince me that my mother just wants what's best. Like, what is that even supposed to mean? All of this was coming from the same guy who would just nod along to whatever my mom said, just to keep the peace. I tried to point that out, but all I got was his classic dismissive shrug. That only escalated things. I mean, he didn't want to rock the boat after all these years, did he? To make matters worse, I reached out to my brother to discuss how hurt I was by the situation. I thought having him on my side might help. Instead, he acted like he always did, defensive, saying I was only trying to get attention and stir things up. It's like the moment I opened the door for communication, he slammed it right back. In a particularly tense conversation, he casually mentioned a family meeting happening next week that I wasn't invited to. I felt my stomach twist. Why the heck wouldn't I be included? It just confirmed what I already suspected. There was something being cooked up behind my back. Things took a dark turn when I found a piece of paper tucked away in my mom's purse while I was helping her get rid of old receipts. It was an old note that listed out family events from the past couple of years, and next to my name, in her handwriting, were notes. Sadness creeping back, needs attention, don't allow too much freedom. Wait, what? The phrase haunted me. How could she feel this way? This was clearly her scaling back on everything again, trying to manage my life before it even got a chance to blossom. I felt like everything was spinning out of control. The earlier condescending comments made sense now. There were way deeper layers to peel back, and I didn't know if I was ready for what came next. I went all in after finding that note. I couldn't just sit quietly anymore, especially when I knew my mom was keeping this twisted hold on my life. I started talking to my friends more, filling them in on everything and my plan to confront her. But honestly, I felt like I was walking through a minefield. I risked my friendships with those who had previously sided with her when they realized that my mom was manipulating my narrative for years. And then there's my dad, who I thought might understand better after all this, but nope. He went right back to his classic support the narcissist mode, avoiding the tension like a pro. It was infuriating. I felt so exposed, and every conversation made me question if I was truly overreacting like he claimed. Then I stumbled across an old family album that somehow got tucked away in the attic when I was looking for some art supply. I started flipping through the photos, all these happy memories full of smiles and laughter. But wait, what was that? I paused on a picture from my brother's birthday party 4 years ago. There was my mom, arms stretched wide around my brother, and then me, hidden away in the corner. It struck me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just a coincidence. My connection to my mother was always dictated by my brother's experiences, and I began to see how these subtle patterns of neglect formed a more profound bond she maintained with him. That realization was like pouring gasoline on the fire. I was convinced then that there had to be a deliberate plan behind this favoritism. Like she was keeping a log of moments to remind me I was the problem, while he was the star. I knew at this point I had to confront my mom directly. That was a nerve-wracking moment, trust me. We had this family dinner planned, and I decided enough was enough. While everyone was gathered around the table, it was just a matter of time before I brought it up. I mean, how could I not? The moment came, and I stood up. My heart raced as I started talking about her comments, the lies, everything. My brother's face changed from confusion to anger, the dinner suddenly faltering into awkward silence. It felt like chaos was brewing, but I needed to keep going. Before I could even finish, my mom snapped. She called me delusional, claiming I was just trying to ruin family time. But this wasn't just a moment of emotion. I had documents, trust me. But before I could unveil the truth, she deflected and accused me of ruining my brother's birthday dinner. Suddenly, it was all on me. It felt like the ultimate betrayal hit in real time, and I was standing there with my heart in my throat. Just then, I realized I might be fighting very few battles, and I was out to invoke the biggest family war. The family dynamic was crumbling, and frankly, it terrified me. After that dinner went up in flames, I realized I couldn't just back down. I needed to pull off something that would get everyone thinking twice about my mother's reality. So, I sent a group text to the whole family, spilling everything I had found, like full-on screenshots of all the lies my mom spread about me and snippets about her controlling nature. I figured if she could manipulate our family dynamics so easily, I could flip the narrative back with a dose of hard facts. I mean, no matter what happened next, once the words hit the group chat, there was no turning back. We gathered the next evening, and oh man, the air was thick with tension. I watched as my mom set herself up in a corner, perfectly composed, looking like she was ready for a slight skirmish. I knew I had the upper hand. Word for word, I presented everything. The fabrications, the notes I dug up, the way she'd twisted my life into a spectacle. Eventually, I brought out that note I found in her purse, and you could see everyone's jaws drop. The moment she read those scribbled words about keeping me in check, the look on her face shifted to a mix of confusion and panic. I pushed on, saying that I wanted to reclaim my narrative, but then she snapped. "You can't do this! You're ruining everything," she yelled, her calm demeanor cracking for the first time. But I wouldn't let her bully me again. I could feel that I had everyone's attention. It was my chance to reveal the ugly truth. She had always pitted us against each other for her own gain, maintaining the golden child narrative while I was merely a spare tire in her story. As the revelations piled up, I could see my dad start to shift uncomfortably, and for once, there was no immediate defense of her actions. The moment shifted dramatically when my brother stood up, outright denying everything. "You're always going too far, trying to make us seem like the bad guys," he shouted, throwing his own accusations at me. I could see the confusion ripple through the family, and my heart raced, thinking that I was about to lose everything. But I wouldn't back down. The tension rose to a boiling point as I pulled up memories, photos from the past, and statements as proof. I dug deep, dragging family secrets into the light. There was no escaping it now. Finally, my mother, in a fit of rage, got up and started shouting, saying no one in the room is questioning my credibility, but how could they? I pressed on, knowing this reckoning was my only hope to break free from her shadow. It was chaos, emotions poured into every corner, but I could sense shifts, realizations. A crack was forming. And as I stood there, watching it all unravel, I felt both exhilarated and terrified. I was finally reclaiming my own life, but I knew my relationships would never be the same again. After that showdown, everything changed. The immediate fallout was intense. My mom stormed out of the room, and the silence from everyone felt deafening. My brother's face was a mix of disbelief and anger. I mean, I had always thought we shared a bond, but it became clear that my rebellion against my mom had ripped that apart. In the days following, there was this awkwardness at every family gathering. My dad attempted to fill the void, trying to act like a mediator, but it was obvious he was just trying to keep the peace. But how can you keep the peace when everything you thought you knew was now in question? My brother wouldn't look at me, and I could understand why. He was trapped in the crossfire, so torn between loyalty to our mom and dealing with the fact that I might have told the truth. Meanwhile, my mom started spinning a narrative portraying herself as the victim, texting family members all sorts of messages, trying to win them over, saying I was overreacting and not mature enough to handle family matters. It was so infuriating. I felt like I was dragging myself through mud. Like here I was, trying to clear my name, and instead, she was spinning this elaborate tale. I started to feel isolated. Friends who previously sided with her were suddenly silent, and I thought I'd have allies to rally behind. I learned quickly that truth isn't always how you think it'll go down. It depends on the people involved, and family matters can be deeply subjective. Hell, at one point, I didn't even know who to trust. In the aftermath, I spent more time reflecting on how I got here. I realized that while it felt like I had made strides in breaking free, it cost me a lot. I had finally stood up for myself, but that meant rebuilding alliances and redefining some relationships. I think deep down, I still hoped my brother would come around. Yes, we had had some terrible back and forth that night, but I still wanted him to understand why I had to do it. There were lingering pieces left unturned, the family secrets still felt unresolved, and who knows what else would float to the surface. In the back of my mind, there was this gnawing thought that even if I had the truth on my side, I might never completely escape the hold my mom had or the myths she spun over the years. So as I tried to step into this new chapter, kind of learning to stand on my own, I was left with a messy bunch of unresolved threads. I wish I could say I felt free. Instead, it was just me looking into a mirror, trying to piece my identity back together while still dealing with the remnants of my family's messy history. Each day felt like a push and pull, and honestly, I knew I was just scratching the surface.